What's up guys, Tekkakoon back with another video, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at the Shure SM7B versus the Behringer XM8500. So now that I finally got a Shure SM7B, this is a comparison that I've been waiting to do for such a long time. Ever since I got the Behringer XM8500, I've always wanted to know how it stacked up to a Shure SM7B, and now I'm actually making the video. So for those of you who don't know, the Behringer XM8500 costs 29 Australian dollars, and the Shure SM7B costs anywhere between 700 and 800 Australian dollars. I obviously got mine for an exceptional deal of $126, but that's a whole story which I made in a different video. And both of these microphones are dynamic microphones, except the Shure SM7B is a large diaphragm dynamic, while the Behringer XM8500 is just your typical size dynamic microphone, which the capsule itself is actually still pretty big compared to something like a small sized condenser capsule. Let's move on to the build quality and design of these microphones. So both of them are made entirely out of metal. The Behringer XM8500 is a live handheld dynamic microphone, meaning it just looks like a typical one that goes on stage. So obviously the Shure SM7B takes the win when it comes to looks in pretty much everyone's opinion out there. This is probably the best looking microphone I've ever seen in my opinion. And so yeah, the Shure SM7B is a beautiful looking microphone, while the Behringer XM8500 is just kind of something you see very often, and it's nothing special. It doesn't really stand out at all. But that's not to say it's a bad looking microphone. It still has a nice design for a handheld microphone. It just can't compete compared to the Shure SM7B. And as I said, build quality wise, they're both about the same, but the Shure SM7B is a lot heavier because it has a lot heavier parts inside, which does make the microphone feel a lot more expensive and just better quality. So now let's move on to the topic of sound. Both of them, as I mentioned, are dynamic microphones, and judging from other videos that people have made, they do have a very similar sound, and that's what I'm going to be putting into the test today. So what you've been hearing this whole video is the Shure SM7B plugged straight into the Behringer Q802 USB mixer with no effects turned on, no compression, nothing like that, the pure sound. And I have the gain set at 100%, and then I have the level meter just a little over 0 dB. But I have tested this, and no, it does not give any extra noise. You do not need a cloud lifter with this particular setup with a mixer. I have tested to see how much noise this setup produces, and it's completely inaudible. Even when I turn up the volume all the way to 100%, I can barely hear the noise generated from those preamps. So I have the Shure SM7B about an inch or two away from my mouth. If I get right up on the microphone, this is what it sounds like with its proximity effect. And as you can tell, it sounds fantastic. Now, if I move it further away, now the Shure SM7B is about half a foot away or 6 inches away. And this is what it sounds like. A lot of streamers use it this distance away with higher gain settings, but in my opinion it sounds way better when it's closer to your mouth. It has a much warmer sound and just a much better sound. Whenever you bring a microphone closer to you, it's always going to sound a lot better. Anyway, let's switch to the Behringer XM8500. Alright, so now I have the Behringer XM8500 hooked up to my mixer. I have the gain set at about 85% maybe, and the level set at exactly 0 dB, so I don't have to boost it anymore, while the Shure SM7B I did have to boost. Now, you'll notice that I have a pop filter on here, and that's to reduce the plosives of this microphone, because the plosives on this microphone are actually really bad. It's one of the biggest downside of this microphone. So I kind of figured out a trick for this where you put a bigger pop filter on this microphone and you don't push it all the way in, you just have it about halfway on. And that gives some space for the air that's entering the capsule to slow down, giving it a very plosive-free experience. And so this is what the sound you get from the Behringer XM8500 with this pop filter solution on. And let me take it off quickly. And this is what the Behringer XM8500 sounds like without the pop filter on. As you can see, I have this sort of double-sided tape on here. And yes, that's a bit stupid, but it's just simply to hold this on permanently so it doesn't keep sliding on and off. Yeah, if I get right up on the microphone like I did with the Shure SM7B, this is what the proximity effect sounds like. It sounds really good for $29. There's no denying that at all. I really like the sound of this microphone for that price. Anyway, let's switch back to the Shure SM7B for the rest of the video. Alright, so now I'm back on the Shure SM7B, and let me wrap up this whole video in terms of sound. Both of the microphones sound really good, and especially for their respective price points. The Shure SM7B competes with higher end microphones as well, while of course the Behringer XM8500 punches well above its weight. I'd say this microphone could easily sell for $100 happily, and I'd still buy it for that price. But anyway, let me give my thoughts on the sound. In my opinion, the Shure SM7B has a much smoother sound. Not exactly warmer, I'd say it might even be a bit clearer and have a bit more clarity to it. So the Behringer XM8500 might be a bit darker in this situation, which is strange because this microphone is known as a very dark and warm microphone, but the Behringer XM8500 does seem to have a tad bit more warmth. But the one thing that puts me off the Behringer XM8500 for my voice, and that's only my voice. In other examples, the Behringer XM8500 sounds fine. This only happens to be on my voice, and I'm sure there's other people that experience this. So the annoying thing I'm talking about here is that it has a bit of a nasally sound to it. I've listened to them closely several times, and I've just noticed that the Behringer XM8500 has this sort of nasally sound in the mid-tones, which does not give it that perfect sound like the Shure SM7B. If Behringer fixed that up and made another microphone that sounded exactly like that, just without that nasally mid-tone sound, and smoothed out the sound in those mid-tones, then that microphone would be the perfect microphone for that price point, and I'd probably sell it for at least $100 because it would be absolutely fantastic and it would almost sound the same as the Shure SM7B. So if you are looking for a budget dynamic microphone, the Behringer XM8500 is an absolute bargain. Now, the Shure SM7B has a lot of hype behind it, and I reckon that the hype is justified because this microphone does sound really, really good. And even for $800 Australian dollars, it's still a decent purchase, especially if you're running a podcast and you need a good, smooth sound that is easy to listen to. But you can't go wrong with the Behringer XM8500 at all. It's still my budget recommendation. So if you did enjoy this comparison and it helped you out, drop a like on the video, and also let me know down in the comments below if you noticed a big difference between these two microphones. With that all out the way, hope you did enjoy this video, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.